YouTube, what's going on? HeirofCarthage here, back in Total War Warhammer 2, where we are going to take on some more battles. I am honestly still struggling with the Lizardmen. I think it's mostly just because I haven't figured out a good way to handle the prices of their units, what you get for what you pick, how you play against certain units that can come from opposing factions. One of the ones that I still feel most frustrated with, and I haven't made a video about it because I'm still trying to figure it out before I can make a video about it. I've got plenty of footage of me failing at it, but I'd like to get some footage of me playing against vampires. And a lot of you be like, well, that's easy, just stack up a bunch of monsters. I find the vampires actually have some good answers to it, and it's been a real frustration. I've seen other people pull it off, but I'm struggling to do it myself. Anyway, this is going to be a match versus the Tomb Kings. And the Tomb Kings was one where I felt like with the Linosaurus, I brought several Feral Bastiladons because Tomb Kings are going to have a hard time dealing with that many armored monsters. They can certainly deal with one or two, but I brought several and they're cheap, and then I brought 3 Cold One Spear Riders so that I could deal with Tomb King monsters. I've also got a Sara Scar Veteran on a Cold One, and then I brought Gorok here because Gorok is going to be tough as nails against pretty much anything. He is taking a little bit of a beating early against this Kimrian War Sphinx, but he's going to dish it too. Anyway, as the fight unfolds, I'm able to get my Cold One Riders and my Sara Scar Veteran in, and I'm really going to go for the Kimrian War Sphinx first. My opponent has some archers back here, and they are being guarded by some Tomb Guard, and then he's got some Tomb Guard with halberds going towards this flank, and then he has a Tomb Prince back here on a chariot that was meant to help deal with infantry. I have some Chameleon Skinks sneaking in from behind. You can see how quickly the Scar Veteran comboed with the Cold One Riders are able to cause a lot of damage. However, Cold One Riders are very, very flimsy. They'll do a lot of damage, and in the right situation, they're quite good for their cost, but they are flimsy when they get into a fight like that. They fell apart, but I'm going to bring them back in for a second round, and meanwhile, the Scar Veteran is definitely doing good work for me, and then Gorok is doing exactly what I want him to, which is just tanking damage. He's occupying the attention of a Necrosphinx that definitely needs to be helping elsewhere on the battlefield. Initially, I had a not-so-great engagement because my opponent did well and tied down my cavalry with the Carrion and moved in the Tomb Guard with halberds, but I pulled away from it to finish off the Carrion. That leaves this Tomb Guard with halberds displaced from the battle. My Chameleon Skinks get the attention of his Tomb Prince, which is great because his infantry really needs the help of that Tomb Prince. And you can see the Feral Bastiladons are paying dividends here because they're tying units down and helping to make this whole thing generally more difficult. Now, I am using my Skink Priest. I didn't show it, but I've been dropping Curse of Air here to nerf the attack of the Tomb Kings and make it really difficult for their leaders to KO Gorok in here. So I've mostly just been using Curse of Air for attack nerfing. And you can see here that the Kimrian War Sphinx gets in trouble. I'm going to drop one last Curse of Air, which does affect it. And I'm able to keep this thing from getting away. You can see it really hurts the attack. And then my Scar Veteran and Riders are able to easily keep up with it because of its speed also being debuffed as part of the curse. And we take out the Tomb King. Like I said, meanwhile, the Bastiladon's basically just doing whatever I want them to. And it's given my units an opportunity to swamp his archers. And my Chameleon Skinks can now move around to help finish off the Necrosphinx. I almost called him a Necroskink. That'd be cool, huh? Necroskink. Anyway, what few cavalry I have left, I use them to hold off the summoned Ishabti. And at this point, I've got enough Saurus warriors that my opponent's in some real trouble. Tomb Guard have so-so armor. Saurus have so-so armor. But Saurus have more weapon damage, I believe, than Tomb Guard. It's pretty close. It's actually closer than I thought. 42 weapon damage is pretty good. My guys have 52, and they just come out on top in this fight from an infantry standpoint, and I'm able to get in here and bring down the Necrosphinx as well. Able to pick up a pretty quick victory here versus the Tomb Kings, but like I said, folks, I just continue to struggle versus the vampires, and it's been an interesting one for me. Yes, I have several replays of me dying to the vampire counts. Eric, why aren't you showing them? Well, because I want to make a lesson of it. I don't have the lesson yet, right? When I took this matchup with Tomb Kings, for instance, what am I up against? Okay, a Necrosphinx is very good at killing a dinosaur. Okay, well, I don't want to make my lord on a dinosaur and make it easy for him to be killed by a Necrosphinx. All right, that's an easy solution. I pick Gorrock. I want something to be able to nerf the Tomb Kings a little. Sometimes they skirmish. Sometimes they have a lot of infantry. You know, Flock of Doom, Curse of Onrayer, that works for me. It takes away melee attack. I can take away accuracy. I can slow down movement speed. I can take away hit points from a big infantry blob. You know, it's pretty good. It works out for me. Sarus Scar Veteran. Obvious pick here in case you run into a Tomb Scorpion. The Kimrian War Sphinx. He does very good anti-large damage, and he can move around good when he's mounted on a cold one without being a massive target where you've spent even more money to make it easier for them to focus their missile fire or their Necrosphinx, right? 4 Sarus warriors with shields. Shields because it makes it harder for the bows to get them. And then obviously Sarus warriors are a tough match for the Tomb Kings. They can kill skeletons for days. So it makes it difficult for the Tomb Kings to answer. This is one of the few matchups where Sarus warriors really don't have a whole lot of drawbacks. There are a lot of matchups where Sarus warriors have a drawback where you can pick them, but get easily outpicked or outnumbered or whatever it is. And in this case, Sarus warriors are a pretty darn good pick, in my opinion, versus Tomb Kings. Chameleon Skinks are great because they can get in and really harass a Shabti with Great Bow and free up your cavalry if you bring any, like I did, to do its anti-large work. They don't need to worry about skirmishers because the Skinks can come in and cause trouble there. And then the Bastiladons is really more of a confusion thing for me, right? I've got 3 armored targets that I can pick for relatively cheap and let loose on their infantry. And the goal there is, what are you going to do? Can they deal with them? Potentially, yes, but it means that they would have to go through, do it one by one, focus fire. All the while, I've got Chameleon Skinks, cavalry, right? You see the purpose there? It's because my opponent can't ignore them, but I'm trying to throw in something that I think he will have a hard time killing quickly. One of the best things you might be able to do is just tie down Pharaoh Bastiladons with an unreal amount of skeleton spears. As an example, just have so many skeleton spears in the back that it just becomes an issue. But in any case, that's the way this build ended up working out for me. But vampires, you know, vampires are, for the most part, not terrifying to the Lizardmen. There's a few units, and maybe it's just me that I struggle with. Maybe it's just me. Obviously, I think a solid pick for the vampires anytime they're going to play Lizardmen, and I'm just going to talk through this real quick because I'd love to have some conversation with you. And if I'm crazy, I could be totally wrong, folks. I understand that, and I'm open to that. This is part of a learning process, right? So Vlad von Karstein is the pick I get almost every time I play the vampires. Almost. Not every time, but almost. And it makes sense. He has access to the right spells. He's very difficult for the Lizardmen to kill. He's very difficult for most people to kill. And so he becomes a very obvious pick. And so that's the one you see the most often. Then you may see him supported with some White Kings to give you something else troublesome to pick, but there's a couple of units that I really struggle with on a huge level. Blood Knights, Vargulfs. For whatever reason, like I've even had 2 Carnosaurs ripping into a Vargulf, and it's like it just doesn't work. It doesn't do much. The Vargulfs come in, they deal decentish armor-piercing damage, but because of the way they regenerate, it takes forever to kill these things. And the Vargulfs are also good at getting in and bullying lords on foot, and they're also pretty good at double teaming a dino, and one dino may be good versus a single Vargulf, but they're bad versus 2 of them, and then if your dino is busy trying to pull down a Vargulf, you're getting wrecked by Blood Knights somewhere else. Well, Eric, just bring a healing blob with nothing but Temple Guard. I've done it. I've done it twice, and it doesn't work every time. I think it would work sometimes, depending on what the opponent picks, but if they're smart and they just pick like a couple of good Graveguard infantry, you're toast, because Temple Guard just don't perform well versus that stuff. Then the other thing they can throw into the mix to make this even more messy is something like the Mortis Engine or Claw of Nagash. I'm going to put these 2 up here as an option. Let's say I bring cavalry to try and deal with the Blood Knights. I can't deal with the Claw of Nagash now. And then, I mean, Mortis Engines are slippery, especially the Claw of Nagash. Very difficult to catch already. And then while you're fighting it, you're losing hit points, and it's healing hit points. Some factions have a very easy answer to the Mortis Engine, like cannons or handguns or something that just chew this thing up very quickly. Chameleon Skinks don't do great against this thing because it has so many hit points and it heals. And not only that, your Chameleon Skinks are going to get harassed by Blood Knights and Vargulfs. So it's an interesting one, not to mention the fact that you can easily summon some zombies to make it difficult for the Chameleon Skinks to continue to focus fire. I don't know that the vampires are like the bane of the Lizardmen. I'm just struggling because the Lizardmen as a faction are pretty cool. They have a decent diversity. They have a lot of interesting units and a lot of interesting lords, and they have decent magic and stuff like that. They're a cool faction as a whole, but it's like everything they have is just a hair too expensive. And you find yourself building, and it becomes very difficult to feel like you've built an army that can really round out well. Whereas there's a lot of other factions, like, for instance, Dark Elves is a good example. I feel like it's very easy to make a nice round build with the Dark Elves, but it's very difficult to do it with the Lizardmen. Now, that could just be my playstyle, and that's part of why I'm bringing it up and trying to get some advice from you all and your thoughts. But as soon as I figure out something that I like versus vampires, I'll show it to you, and I'll show you how I lost previously. But that's the thing, is I'm trying to get the full lesson together. Anyway, I'm not done with Lizard yet. I feel like I'm still working on this. Frustrated, but I'm still working on it. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this. Hope you are enjoying your weekend. HeirofCarthage signing out for now, and I do hope to see you soon.